In Old English, man with two N's did not mean male. It meant person. It was a generic human-neutral term used to designate a member of the human species. If you encountered a man, you encountered someone, not necessarily someone male. In fact, the default human subject in Old English didn't require gender marking unless that distinction was specifically relevant. This root wasn't isolated. In related Germanic languages, Old High German, Old Norse, Gothic, the cognates of man also functioned as general human terms. These descend in turn from a Proto-Germanic form, Mann, and likely further from a Proto-Indo-European root man or mon, often reconstructed to mean to think or mind. In Sanskrit, manus refers to human beings. In Latin, mens gives us mind. The connection to thinking suggests a deep cultural link between being human and being conscious. So at its origin, man did not designate gender. It designated species, or perhaps more accurately, the condition of being sapient, social, mortal. It was a kind of ontological constant. One was either a man or something else entirely. The shift from man to man involved both phonological simplification and semantic narrowing. As English evolved from Old to Middle and then Modern English, the original man lost one of its ends and its generalized scope. Over time, man came to refer more and more specifically to adult males. This happened alongside, and partly because of, the loss of other terms that once handled male specificity. The most significant of these was which in Old English meant man in the sense of male human. It had clear roots in Indo-European languages, though in Latin being a cognate. The word survives faintly in modern English through compounds like werewolf, literally man-wolf, but were faded out of common usage, and man, now man, absorbed its role. Once man began to stand in for male human, the inclusive sense of the word became ambiguous and eventually fell into tension. What had once been a neutral linguistic shell for personhood became a gendered symbol. This semantic migration was not accidental. It reflected and perhaps helped reinforce a broader cultural dynamic, the centering of male as default and the framing of the human condition through male experience. The word woman descends from the Old English compound wifman, which means quite simply female person. The compound is clear wif, meaning woman or female, and man, meaning person. This isn't a derivation from man, but a clarification of it. The female person was still a man, a human being, but now specified as female. In this early phase, there was no implication that woman was a derivative or subordinate form of man. The distinction was syntactic, not hierarchical. As English phonology changed, wifman shifted. Consonants and vowels slid toward the forms we now recognize. By Middle English, wifman had become women and then woman. But as man evolved into a gender-specific man, the compound began to look, retrospectively, like a gendered derivative, wo plus man. That misreading sticks today, reinforcing an illusion of dependency in form, as though woman were linguistically born out of man. This is one of those fascinating distortions that language history produces. A perfectly balanced term gets twisted by the changing meanings of its parts. Wifman once clarified gender within an egalitarian human frame. Now woman appears as an offshoot, a linguistic appendage to a word that, in its modern form, seems to dominate the species label. Once man took on gendered meaning, the space for a truly neutral term in English began to erode. The word still lingers in places where it purports to include everyone, mankind, manpower, man-made, but these terms increasingly feel inadequate or exclusionary. Their form suggests universality, but their modern associations betray a male bias. This is not simply a matter of etymology, it's a matter of perception and use. A word may have begun as neutral, but it does not stay that way if society shifts its framing. Language is a living structure. It warps with culture, with politics, with ideology. And so man, once a mirror for all humans, became a screen that foregrounded some and occluded others. Attempts to restore neutrality through alternatives, humanity, humankind, people, are part of a broader re-evaluation. They are not just semantic adjustments, but acts of redress. The goal is not to erase the past, but to break the illusion that linguistic history is destiny. The relationship between man and woman reveals more than a series of phonetic evolutions or lexical substitutions. It lays bare the subtle mechanics by which language becomes ideology, how neutral containers turn into asymmetrical categories, and how inherited terms can shape inherited power. What began as a single, shared word for all human beings split along lines of gender and assumed new meanings, new roles, new implications. One form, man, was universal and became particular. Another, woman, was particular and came to look dependent. The original symmetry of man was fractured, not just phonetically but conceptually. And now we live in the wake of that fracture, still negotiating its consequences. But the path backward is not sealed. Language, like history, can be reread, re-understood and restructured. We can reclaim the layers not to return to an idealized past, but to see more clearly how we got here.